that the whole
Yo
thing?
sigo trabajando para mantener lo que yo quiero tanto, para mantener lo que yo quiero tanto.
I'm very, very pleased that there's so much energy around this. My name is Cliff Bain. I'm Commissioner of the City of Atalaya in the Rio Hondo. And you all know the most important thing is that you write your comments down, and it's best if you can submit them a little more lengthy than that scrap of paper. And there will be thousands of comments, and most likely they will make a decision. They'll issue a notice of decision that says there's no significant impact. It happens time and time again. And we will appeal that. They will deny that unless they hear us. It's possible they could hear us. They could really hear us. But we have to be prepared to come together as a community and raise the money to take this to court and to do what everyone can see that this requires an environmental impact statement, a study that looks at these things and goes out in the community and finds out what the impacts are and finds out what's happening to the creatures that live up there and puts it together with a report that is typically designed to allow this to proceed. But this environmental impact environmental assessment does not even look at what the no-action alternative is. And the law clearly states they have to do that. So they're trying to skirt the law. And it's our responsibility to force them to do what they should do day in and day out, which is to look at the impacts of this extraordinarily excessive development that's happening up in our little watershed at the top of the Hondo River. And it's up to us to demand and implement community democracy. And we've done it here, well, people have done it here for hundreds and hundreds of years. So there's a long tradition here that we're part of. So I would like many of you to come up here and speak, because this is our meeting. And I also would like to mention that I have here a petition signed by the commission of two of the Taoseños in Rio Hondo, and it's calling for a moratorium on all development up there until they solve their water problems, until we get some accountability of where their water rights are coming from, why it is that they can, in the extreme drought of 2018, when we had no runoff and our ditches, could not water the fields, and they were drawing water out of what they call the springs, but it's really what it is a vast network, slightly underground. They call it an infiltration gallery, and it sucks as much water as they want out of the upper watershed. And they were, through the summer, irrigating the ski runs. Down in the valleys, we have to share the shortage. Every year there's not enough water. So we have meters and we get together and we decide how that is divided. And it's not divided by priority, it's divided by custom, so that there's enough, some water for all the fields. And it's just not acceptable that perhaps the biggest water use in the river in the summertime now is not part of sharing that storage. This is a very big deal to try to make this thing happen. We know that Louis Bacon is a billionaire, and he has all the politicians lined up behind him to support whatever he wants. But we are the people, and we have to do everything we can to restore the balance where we live. And we can do it, and we are doing it.
Cliff? Hernandez, and I am a water protector, community builder, and yes, and an advocate for the earth. And somewhere along the lines of humanity, we've been tricked that we need money when we really need the earth. She supplies water, materials for housing, for food. In the Great Depression, Taos did not experience a depression because we had family. We built each other's homes out of the earth here. We had ranching and farming going on, and we need to get back to that. We need to protect our lands is what we need, and not the big dollar, because we don't need more people coming here to flush water down the toilet. We need to take care of the people that are already here. And so we need to work. I'm excited to be part of Taos at this time, where we have leaders, elected officials that we can believe in. And yes, true Taoseños, where their grandmas and grandpas grew up here and their families built their homes out of the earth here. And yes, so thank you for being here, for your time, for using your voice and coming to learn. Yes, I believe in us, Taos. We can protect this community.
My name is Pam Harris, and I live in Upper Hondo. And the Acequia Madre flows through my property. And it used to be that the kids swam in it. But within 2 weeks of the sewer plant, thank you, we had filament algae that you could walk on water in the Acequia Madre. And if you don't know anything about filament algae is dangerous to animals. It kills them. It kills the fish. We can't let our dog drink in the, we have to watch her carefully, so she doesn't drink in the acequia. And I was talking to the mayor of Ski Valley, and he said that they're testing the water at the very base of where the system is. And I would like to see those tests handed over to the acequia associations, and I'd like to have the acequia associations told exactly where it's taken out. And what I suddenly realized is, because he mentioned maybe it's the systems that come out of the houses, the drain fields, and we can't just skip and think it's one thing without investigating another. We shouldn't be building a bigger plant without knowing whether or not there's something coming out of someone's sewer system. We don't have a sewer system. We have individual plants, which if they're not taken care of, they could be leaking. But it's better to know, and we can't agree that a lot of money is going to go into Ski Valley when we have a problem down below. And it's even showing up in the river now. So I have pictures of it. And honestly, it's solid green. You could walk on water. So I would like to see more time spent looking at all the alternatives. And not just placing blame, but really taking a look at what it's doing to the communities as well as Ski Valley. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Go.
My name is Helen Prater, and I've been doing a lot of research about food, the health of food, and so it's so important you hold your ground and we hold our water, because the healthy food comes from the local farmers and the people that grow things without chemicals. If you go into these grocery stores here in Taos, especially, I'm not going to say any names, but it's all poison. It's full of herbicides, pesticides, additives, food colors, in your water. I spent part of my time in Santa Fe, and I need to get another water report because the last one I got was in 2021, coming out of the Buckman Springs. But it's really frightening what's in our water. I mean, just alone, without anything, we have in our tap water, we have, as you know, chlorine and fluoride. So hold your land, take care of your water, and our farmers are our heroes. Our farmers and, you know, everything that's coming from the runoff at Ski Valley, you've got all kinds of stuff. They say they don't use the snowmax in the snowmaking, but they might use salt or they might use the snowmax in the future. But all that runoff is our water that we're drinking and we're growing our food with. And that water that is used in these acequias, if it has these chemicals in them or pharmaceuticals or whatever, you know, that's what we're eating. So it's the ecosystem. You know, it's not just saving the little deer or whatever. I mean, I love the wildlife, and that's another great concern of mine. You know, the impact of development. And in support of Ski Valley, I love to ski. I bought my 3rd ski pass, and every person I've talked to, they come for the rugged experience at Taos. I mean, we have an awesome mountain, and they're all excited. They love it. So I don't know why, you know, they need to do this development, because it's a great place. It's a great place to ski at. And if he wants to do anything, he could just improve, you know, renovate his lodges, improve the food, and maybe, you know, why do all these bikers need to ride on the mountain? Why don't we fix the road up there and make a bike path and reduce the speed limit? And, you know, hiking trail is great, but there's just so many things they could do besides tearing up the mountain and further developing it. But anyhow, thank you.
My name is Nora Herrera-Oz. I am the madam of the Acequia de los Plangos in Valdez. I submitted a different piece of paper the last time we had this meeting. And I had some questions to the Forest Service. What is your definition of better, not bigger, meaning you're only looking at the proposed new boundaries?
Louder because people are talking back there.
The proposed expansion, am I too close? Closer? Closer, okay, sorry. The proposed expansion should take into account the totality of the impact the Taos Ski Valley has. It is not isolated, but goes hand in hand with the overall uses. You say the proposed gondola, etc. project is in the public's benefit. What is your definition of public? Because I don't think you give much weight to the people who actually live downstream on or near the river, or the people who rely on the Rio Hondo for irrigation. Who keeps track of skier capacity? Who keeps these numbers, and how do we know they're being kept at correct levels? What water source would be used to store in proposed water tanks? And wasn't there an agreement for water not to be stored at Taos Ski Valley? What happened to the water that was, quote, borrowed a few years back for making snow? Was it ever returned to the stream? All water at Taos Ski Valley should be monitored in accordance with numbers that we monitor from downstream acequias to determine the amount of water acequias are entitled to. Is Highway 150 rated to allow heavy semi-trucks to use it, considering the damage done to the road all the way up to Taos Ski Valley? You say multiple comments on the same subject only count as one. That's ridiculous. If you have, say, 10,000 people protesting one aspect of these expansions, it doesn't seem right or fair for all those voices to be counted as a mere one. I would say your premise is flawed, and I, for one, oppose this project.
I want a moment of silence to reflect on our ancestors that have been here for many generations. So let's take a little bow. Slaishla, Maishla, Atole, Chakewe, Masa. That's what comes out of the dirt with that water. It's precious, it's sacred. Bottom line, I ski, I love to ski, but there has to be a limit. There has to be a limit. I was irrigating my alfalfa today and yesterday. Before 40, 50 years ago, the water was deep. I would dunk my water boots about 2 feet, 3 feet. Now I can only go a foot. So there's something going on wrong there. So we gotta stand for our right. And it's a shame that you guys can come over here and tell us what to do in our own land. We're dealing with the Monroe Doctrine. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's a shame. But you know what? And I reflect that to the Taos Pueblo too. We're our brothers. We're our brothers. Even if they like it or not, money's not going to buy you out, man. It's the root of all evil. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Carlos Arguello. I'm originally from Valdez, born and raised there. At the appropriate age to have seen development from the onset. I knew the original Blake family. I skied up there. I learned how to ski when I was young. I guess all comments are to be heard, but what I want to say is I want the Forest Service and Taos Ski Valley Incorporated, the village of Taos Ski Valley, to reflect on when is too much enough. When is too much enough? There's a capacity for everything wherever you live, and I think that capacity is being overrun. So my simple statement is, when is too much enough?
Hello, my name is John Castillo, and I was raised in Denver as a skier. I learned at Loveland Ski Area, which is a fantastic ski area in my opinion. They do it right there. The Forest Service keeps them in check because it's our public land. The Arapahoe Basin is another example of a well-run ski area that the Forest Service does not let the ski area dictate what happens on our public lands. And the reason I got up here to speak today was to make a point that this draft environmental assessment describes only the latest phase of development of this massive development initiative that's taking place right now. Phase one was right after the hedge fund manager bought the ski area, and he put a lift up Kachina Peak. There never should have been a lift up Kachina Peak. That was never the plan. It's too steep. It's way too steep of a mountain to be taking people up there on a chairlift. And we all learned a very painful lesson a few years ago about that. It's an avalanche cirque, a high alpine cirque. That's not a recreation place, really, except for the most skilled and advanced mountaineers. That's why it's hike-only terrain. That's how it was designed. The Forest Service never should have permitted the Kachina lift. Phase two of this massive development initiative, since Louis Bacon bought the Ski Valley, was the last environmental assessment just 2 or 3 years ago, where a whole range of improvements were proposed. And there was a finding of no significant impact, and A lot of work was done up there, a lot of development work. And now we have phase 3. When is enough enough? I agree. I think we passed that point about 5 years ago. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jessica Weathers, and I'm from Rio Hondo, and I just want to speak for the youth right now. I just want to say that we have so little agriculture left in Taos, and we just want to hang on to what we have left, and we can only do that. We can only do that with water, and we have animals to feed, and buying from out of state, we don't know what's in the hay, we don't know, we just want to use our own. My great-grandpa is Jose Manuel Archuleta, and he has just been an amazing role model in my life, and I just want to appreciate that. And it's a really short speech, but I just want to say, please think about the impact that it has on other people's lives before you decide what to do.
I'm Kevin. Hello. I'm Kevin Bursell. I'm a commissioner on the Acequia de San Antonio in Valdez. And I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have an opportunity to speak my mind. And what's on my mind right now, this very instant, is rich man's water, poor man's drought. Because that's what we're looking at. But really, I want to talk about the NEPA process. Where's the NEPA table? Oh, NEPA people. The NEPA process is ostensibly meant to give people a chance to have input into the process of decision-making for projects like this. But when you look at the NEPA process itself, really what it does is it makes you want to pull your hair out and run away. And that's on purpose. They don't really want your comments. They make it so it's very hard to have input. They talk about substantive comments. They give you a little tiny form with no space at all to make a comment. When you look for the regulations, you say, well, what does actually the law say here? It's deep. It goes back. There's executive orders. There's layers and layers of memos and directives and departmental policies. There's different laws. It goes on and on and on. It's very difficult to figure out what's going on. And what they want there is they want you to turn away and decide to do something else with your day. But what I'm asking you here today is to go ahead, to wade through that, to take the time to submit a comment, to speak your mind, to tell the Forest Service what you think, because if you don't, you're giving it all away. This is our chance to have input into the process. And even though it's difficult and it's hard, it's something that we need to do. And I hope you all do that. Thank you very much.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Gracias. Me llamo Priscilla Cia Israel, muy orgullosa bisnieta de Marcos Martín Montoya y Genoveva Durán González Montoya. Son 5 generaciones que estamos en Valdez. Yo riego mis árboles con agua de la acequia de San Antonio. Mis bisabuelitos, mis tías, mis tíos y mi madrecita nos enseñaron a regar con la acequia. Les quiero decir en mi idioma que las cosas que hacemos con la acequia, nuestros árboles, nuestras yardas, son cosas que nos duele, que nos arde, pero también que nos da mucho orgullo de cuidar. Yo nomás tengo 7 árboles, tengo manzanas y todos de mis familias vienen a recibir manzanas, ciruelas, vienen a nuestra casa. Es mi querencia. Ustedes que no saben lo que es querencia, la palabra querencia quiere decir sanctuary. My yard is my sanctuary. My acequia is my sanctuary. My upbringing is my sanctuary. I cannot speak to the wonderful things that you've all spoken to, the slopes, the degrees of things that should not be built where they're being built. I'm not a skier. What I am is a small orchard farmer. I inherited our family plot in Valdez, en la Merced de Rio Hondo. I want to remind folks that we are important. What you do up at the Ski Valley affects what happens in my yard, my two little tiny países that I inherited. But guess what? They mean more than the millions that the Taos Ski Valley has to me and my son and my family. I ask the Forest Service to consider carefully what the impacts are. One of the problems that I can point out is that you won't even know the impacts if you do not know my soil. If you do not know what goes on in my yard, what goes on in our Merced. Somos importantes. Por favor, óiganos. Listen to what we're trying to educate you about. We're experts on the ground. I've served on my commission. I recently exited that commission, the Acequia de San Antonio. I've served 15 years proudly for my mother's legacy. My mother was Nora Montoya Herrera Cias. Those are big names in this area, but they're bigger names in my heart. So before you ask us to fill out a substantive form, why don't you try to remember all of our names and learn our language and learn the ways of our tradiciones, nuestra cultura. It means something. Those things mean something, and they're being impacted by everything that you're doing at the Taos Ski Valley. The Forest Service, Castillo said it best. It should not be driven by what the Taos Ski Valley would like to design. We should be looking at what the design is already in place. Help us to nurture, not destroy, the place that we call home. I'll leave you with one last thought. The infrastructure at the Taos Ski Valley, if it's not up to its optimum, what's going to happen if there's a fire? What's going to happen if there is a fire? Who is going to be impacted? All of us are. All of us are. And remember, how many tributaries does the Taos Valley have that drain into the Rio Grande? So don't tell me that only the people on the Rio Hondo are impacted. Don't say that. We all know the difference. The impacts are immeasurable. They are immeasurable. Consider that, please.
I'm Erica Collins. I live in Valdez. I've been here 13 years. It seems like the second year that I was here, of course, I was up in the mountains all the time, hiking the trails. It's beautiful and serene, just what I love. Wildflowers, more than I can even imagine. I don't know that I've seen so many sometimes up there. Then they closed the forest. And I thought, wow, I just moved to Taos, this beautiful place, I can't hike. What's going on? I don't even think there was a fire nearby. but they closed the forest, and I went, okay, that's really good. I guess it's is it the state forest? Is it, who told the whole community no more hiking in the mountains? But I respect that. We don't want them to burn. And a big red flag went up last year when the entire biggest fire was going right over, not far away from us. Excuse me, I'm nervous because I don't do as much.
It's okay.
A red flag went up. Everybody was allowed to keep going up to the mountains. And the cars go up, and the dogs, and the people, and there's, all the trails are open. I was saying, what is going on? This is a big red flag. Now this is owned by the Taos Ski Valley. Are there no rules anymore up here? I didn't go up, because I know that you're not supposed to, you shouldn't do that. And so there's people up there whose businesses might be affected, and on. But what about the people? What about the forest? What about the animals if a fire starts? What about the poor overworked firefighters that have come from all over the United States, because we don't have a big enough fire department here to handle more than some minor little thing. Anyway, that's my point. Somebody else can take it on.
Buena vida de Dios. Soy Ricardo Davionaya. I'm Ricardo Davionaya. I work for the Office of the Attorney General. I'm not here to promise anything on behalf of Attorney General Raul Torres. I am here to let you know that I'm here to listen to you. Okay? I'm encouraging you to fill out all the information they want. I'm also encouraging you to send me a copy, because my job is to make sure Attorney General Torres is an informed individual. That's all I'm out here for. Soy de Chililí. Mi gente somos de Chililí, Atrisco. Mi gente están aquí de 1700 años ya pasado. Mi corazón, mi vida es con ustedes. So aquí estoy para pedir de ustedes, dígame, send me an email, send me whatever you're going to send them, and I'll make sure, I hope to make sure that the Attorney General has a position to be informed. Gracias.
I just want to say on that note also, when you send him a copy, also send one to your governor, Michelle Leon Grisham. She's very proactive, and you can email her. So just copy that and send it to her. And also to, who's the politician that said they were going to protect their water rights? All of them. Fernandez, Teresa Ledger Fernandez. She ran on that promise. Both of those ladies should be here, and so please, in addition to whatever comments you submit to the U.S. Forest Service, send it to them as well. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, vecinos. Hello, my name is Will Drunka Wright. I'm a professor of natural resource management at New Mexico Highlands University. I got a forestry degree from New Mexico Highlands University. I took a class in NEPA planning. It wasn't supposed to go like this. This is not from the textbook, I assure you. You're supposed to have better public relations when it comes to that. But I want to mention something about the consumptive, well, the water storage capabilities. Last year, I got evacuated by a fire. I've just moved here from Las Vegas, so I just joined you guys from the other side of the mountain. That fire wasn't supposed to happen. And you know what? No pipeline is ever supposed to rupture as well and leak, but they do. Accidents happen. When we talk about storing that much water up on the hill, millions of gallons, from what I heard at the last meeting, that was equivalent to about 10 acre-feet of water of the total. If that gets leaked out, something happens, it's a high-altitude environment, where does that water end up going? If it's coming out in the summertime, maybe some of that evaporates out. We're losing that water. So these kind of accidents can happen. They in the case of, it's not oil, thank goodness, but losing water is just as important in our area. I work as a wildlife biologist at the university. I teach courses in ornithology, various wildlife type topics, and these kind of environmental assessment language is all about these no action or there'll be an indirect effects. What's the indirect effect of decades worth of development? I didn't go up to the Ski Valley since they upped the prices and I couldn't afford to go anymore. I hadn't been up there in about 10 years. I didn't even recognize the place. So what's it going to look like in 10 years when you have that much more summer traffic of vehicles, roadway collisions with animals, you've got increasingly tall objects going up. We know from all the data, animals don't like tall objects that are unnatural. So these kind of low impact, just kind of in the background takes of wildlife add up. And when we're speaking about increasing that summer component, there's increased road conditions, there's impacts on those roads, increased chances of erosion, all of those kind of impacts that isn't really in those documents. It speaks to it a little bit, but you've all seen what that parking lot's like when there's water running through. That's a lot of sediment coming through, okay? So keep up the good work of writing things, but yeah, as a long-term plan, these kind of individual projects might be one thing, but they build up time after time after time. And again, enough is enough. We all like skiing, but damn, Sivapoo's great because it's small. Just keep it small.
Thank you. Thank you to my nieces and my daughter. And it's very, very important that the younger generation steps up because we're doing for them and they're doing for their children. If we don't address it right now, we're not going to have an opportunity later on. Dave, I like you, Dave, but see if you can help us out here. At some point, we're going to have to ask for a moratorium. At some point, because it is affecting all of us. I have a garden, a lot of people have gardens in this Montes, Valdez, and Rio Hondo, and we want to be able to eat good, fresh vegetables. We don't want this polluted. I'm scared to eat the fish up there, to be honest with you. And talking about Rio Hondo getting all the algae into their rivers, you should see their Valsa ditch. That is probably a foot deep. And what it is, I don't know, but I think the Ski Valley should help us determine what it is, because we never saw it before. But thank you to the younger generations, and it really means a lot to all of us, because you come to our future.
My job.
Anyways, my name's Ron. I'm new here. I've only been here a couple of years. I came out here to snowboard, and I've been, I just want to say, if anyone hasn't learned about this Blake guy, they should read his the Wikipedia about him. He doesn't care about the community, I don't think. Bacon, not Blake. Sorry, yeah, I'm nervous. Blake. Bacon. He doesn't care about the community. So all this stuff here, this kind of propaganda, these bulletin boards, that's just him trying to pull one over, I think, on everybody. I don't really think he cares about the culture of northern New Mexico and how unique it is. I've been to a lot of places in Colorado. I've been to Jackson Hole. There's a lot of ski areas all over the place. And Ski Valley is very unique. Northern New Mexico is very unique. And you can just see it. When you go down the street here, you don't see, you go to Española, a unique place, but it's got the strip malls, it's got all the corporate stuff, you know what I mean? And I feel like all this Bacon guy really wants to do is protect his real estate values and develop, and he's a hedge fund guy, he's private equity. He wants money, profit. He owns an enormous ranch in, I think, San Luis, Colorado, enormous, it's huge. So we're right, when is enough enough? It's never going to be enough for this guy. And to echo what the gentleman who grew up at Loveland, I've been to Loveland too. I've been to A Basin. You don't see condos everywhere. You don't see all that development. And as soon as you go to Ski Valley, when I saw the Kachina lift that goes up there, I was like, you know, that's just putting people up on the mountain that probably shouldn't be up there in the first place, you know, and you really do have to respect that terrain. So anyways, I just want to let everyone know I support you guys.
My name is Sylvia Rodriguez. I'm the secretary of the Acequia de San Antonio in Valdez. Our Acequia Commission, and more recently, the commissions of the Atalaya Ditch in Rio Hondo and the Llano Ditch have called for a suspension or a moratorium on all development at the ski valley starting now until the hydrological infrastructure is not just repaired but fixed. We've also embarked on, which is about to begin, a monitoring of the river, water quality in the river at multiple sites, which should last for 2 years. We also believe that development should stop until we get some hard data on what's going into the river and where and when. It's been monitored sporadically over the years. More recently, we haven't received any notices of exceedances in the sewage treatment plant since 2019. And yet, of course, our sewage treatment plant broke down last year. We want a good faith action from Taos Ski Valley, which is, of course, entangled with the village of Taos Ski Valley, to stop development until this is fixed and until we have hard readings on the data in the river for the first time. There's also the issue of the master plan, which they of course call improvement. We want to be better but not bigger, and yet how can it not be getting bigger with a new gondola, with new restaurants? This is at heart, and I think you can hear this when you listen to people speak. This is a social justice issue. This is an environmental justice issue. The NEPA process that's been executed so far is deeply flawed on precisely those issues. The decisions that have been made above the cattle guard have been done in a context that excludes the people who live downriver, who've been there for, well, at least 200 years. So there's the NEPA process, which we're all caught up in trying to appropriately fit into their categories, which is already flawed. It was written by consultants hired by the Taos Ski Valley, which quite predictably says no negative impact. But this is a social gesture, not only in the sense that the downstream Parcientes, farmers, ranchers, the land grants have been systematically excluded from the big picture, but also because we're at a time right now where the choices that we make cannot be made with the assumptions that existed even 50 years ago. The climate is changing, we're threatened by fires, we're in mega-drought. How can putting a new restaurant on a mountain ridge for which they do not know the sources of water, apparently, according to the Forest Service, have no plan for sewage treatment, be an improvement? The question is, the future of the watershed under this master plan, when it's finally executed, which is based on Mountain Vale or Aspen and fit into a much smaller alpine space. What future is being foreclosed by that one? In other words, if you build that, what becomes impossible? In other words, you're not just letting the ski valley thrive for the 1% and bring in more people and bypass the town and all of that. It's that the watershed's future is being set in a direction that has systematically ignored the welfare and the integrated nature of the people downstream with the watershed itself. We need an alternate future. We need to engage in planning a different kind of future for the watershed, because the watershed, the future of the watershed that's laid out by Taos Ski Valley is inconsistent with the long-term survival and endurance of the people downstream. And the NEPA process does not want to acknowledge that. And the people here are saying that. What kind of future do we want for that watershed? And who should be deciding? A hedge fund billionaire who's driven by nothing but profit? Or the people who have been part of that watershed for hundreds of years and who are struggling to hold on? And then there's the question of sharing the river. Now, do the adjudicated water rights at Taos Ski Valley take priority? and the priority dates that they've striven to transfer upstream, does that mean that they would make priority call in times of shortage? Do they participate in the water sharing agreement that was forged with great difficulty by the downstream communities? These are questions that have not been properly addressed. But really what we're dealing with is an environmental and a social justice issue. And that's the bottom line. And the trajectory that has been planned out by the Ski Valley is not consistent with the well-being of the people downstream in the long term, given the conditions under which this is taking place. You can't have it both ways. To work out a compromise, let's go back to the drawing board, stop developing, let's work together, and develop a whole alternative, environmentally realistic, sustainable picture for the watershed that includes the downstream communities.
Hi, I'm Bob Blair. I live in Rio Hondo. I'm on the Acequia de Atalaya. At one point I was the mayordomo on the ditch. My wife and I have been there for a long time. We grow the food, we drink the water. I'd like to follow up on this last comment here and come up with a proposal that everyone in this room might want to get behind in terms of how we can make the environment better. We know we have less than a decade to seriously turn things around on this planet, or we're all in big trouble. The Ski Valley won't exist unless we start working on environmental issues globally. What can we do locally? The Taos Ski Valley and related businesses, the town up there, have a huge carbon footprint. There's a lot of carbon in various forms released into our environment, into the air, into the water, into the soil. What about coming up with something where we begin to look at those acequias and the river downstream, which are green carbon sinks? Those things absorb carbon out of the environment. What about everyone in this room come up with something where we work together to offset that carbon footprint up there by increasing the amount of water, yes, in the ditches to grow food, but also in those bodegas, in the swamps down there, in the river, where that carbon, maybe not directly, but indirectly, that carbon that's being spewed onto the snow and into the air and into the water and so on, gets absorbed back into the environment. Let's come up with a proposal to enlarge the swamps, enlarge the beaver ponds, get some of that money up there at Taos Ski Valley to offset their carbon footprint downstream. What a great concept.
Well, problem solving. I just remembered that the carbon footprint offset was advertised a year or so ago to be a purchase of something in Africa. Not here. What a great idea. My name is Daniel Weeks. I follow Friends of the Rio Hondo. I follow the Friends of the Wheeler Peak Wilderness. I follow the Taos Mountain Alliance. I ski. And I am a scientist, and I started getting involved, and I asked myself, why did an EA result when an EIS happened the last time, and this has a more significant amount of projects in it? And why not an EIS? And I looked at the data and I said, well, there's an MDP, but it doesn't have any data or any specifics in it. So how could anybody even do an assessment in the first place? Would they want to go back to the drawing board and ask questions like, where are the gondola pads going to go and how big are they and those sorts of things? I don't know the NEPA process, I'm not skilled in that, but that got me thinking. And so I've been looking at the process here, talked to the NEPA people, and I understand that maybe there's another place where numbers are given, but they're not given to the public. It would be nice to have those. But what struck me was the NEPA process, and I'm new to this, supposed to have alternatives. And the comment was made, how about if we slow down? How about if we think of other ways to solve the problem, to help some improvements be made? You know, everybody gets a win-win. Has anybody, well, first of all, I see the forest here. Hi, Adam. Alternatives. At the point where the proposal comes in, the projects are there, the NEPA process should come up with alternatives, and I didn't see any in this EA. So maybe these would be good ideas we could talk about, but Lift 2 seems like a good idea. I'm a skier. I like to improve the rate at which I get up and ski the goods. But the gondola didn't make any sense to me. It seemed kind of more like had other purposes, which we could debate. But the argument was made that gondola is to reduce the flow of traffic up through the municipality on the public right-of-way to the Wheeler Peak Wilderness, which has a hiker lot which belongs to the public and trails that are historical. And moving people around, dispersing them on the ski valley would be a really good idea, so the gondola can do that. Well, Lift 2 is going to move people up quickly. And if Lift 2 combined with Lift 1, which already does that, if you calculate the rates at which people go up the mountain, you end up with just about the same amount of people at the top of where 2 is when you get them to the bottom of the Lift 4. So you want beginners to have some fun. They're already going to be skiing off of Bambi. You know, so the argument doesn't hold water for me that we need a gondola to move people around the mountain. So there's an alternative. Look at Lift 2. Lift 2 solves the problem. Let's let it go. It's a great idea. Ski resorts should be allowed to operate and make some money and please the public. What's with the Phoenix? Where's the Ski Valley people? Oh, you guys are back there. Why isn't the Phoenix used as a restaurant and a lodge? We've had it for years, and all of a sudden the takeover happened and it doesn't get used anymore. And we want to, you know, there's a proposal to build a restaurant at the top of 7, which is, you know, a huge impact. Why not use the Phoenix? It's already there and plugged into the municipality.
I was
never open.
I've talked to a lot of people on the list. I think I talked to some executives or whatever at Ski Valley. But one guy I talked to was a salesman for that Phoenix restaurant. It's for private events.
Well, that's obvious, but what I'm saying is why, when they need
I don't know exactly, but why would they keep it for private? It was empty. All the time I said it was empty.
Would you make a note of that? I think that's a great alternative. I think that could be something that would be really good. Revive the Phoenix, and you don't need to build something at the top of 7. Okay, here's the thing that really bothers me, because I backcountry ski, and it'll be the last thing I talk about. I'm rambling, I know a little bit, but I read many of the documents, the EA, the MDP, and all that, and I keep getting this hint that supposedly the access to the backcountry will be taken care of. There'll be a Lift 4 trail where people can go enjoy hiking in this special use permit. Well, I go up by Williams Lake in the winter and the summer. Many people do, from all over New Mexico, and visitors too. It's the national forest. But if a gondola is going to control access up to that area, and I've seen the road get closed when there's events for the ski area, so I'm really worried about this possibility of constrained and constrained access up to what's beyond the ski valley, from the Kachina Basin and up. And there are well-established public routes that belong to the public to be used. And I don't know what to do with this, because I'm trying to wrap my head around what I think I'm seeing. It's one of those things where your heart tells you there's something wrong here. and I want to figure it out. I propose right away that we have a meeting to talk about that access issue with all the stakeholders. The village of the Ski Valley, because they have the road that goes up there, and I hear they're going to be paving part of it, which is a good thing. And they own the hiker's lot. And then the Ski Valley has done some changing of trails up in the Kachina Basin. I'd like to ask formally here that maybe before the comment period is done, we could have a quick meeting and talk about that access and what's really being intended. Because I think that's an important point. And I'm sorry it took so long, but sometimes I get a little consumed.
Hello. ¿Cuántos aquí hablan español? Sí, digan sí. Muchos. We're a bilingual state. The Constitution requires that everything should be English and Spanish. Don't be scared of expressing yourself in Spanish. It's as good as English. We don't have an official language, English or Spanish. We're both. But I want to fall in line with what everybody said, and I support everything that you've said. So let's stick together and work together and see what we can get done as we stand together. Thank you.
Thank you, Elias, and thank you, all of you, for being here in this space. And I see so many relatives, my parents, my elders, and our youth. And it is a beautiful thing to know that we are here to advocate for the preservation of our lands and our waters and our community. I am an heir to the Rio Hondo Wenga in Valdez, and I represent my elders and the generations that go before me, or that come before me, and I am here to stand and look at my prima's face and tell her, like, we're gonna protect our community, and we're gonna advocate and just encourage folks to be considerate of the people that have inhabited these lands, right? Our indigenous communities, our Hispanic communities, and the people of Valdez. So thank you.
Buenas noches, Dios. My name is Joaquin Arguello from Valdez, representing the Arroyo Community Land Grant. And to follow what our elder said, Mr. Espinosa, en verdad, nada de eso vale tax. Right? A ponerlo al agregado. None of this matters, what we're doing here tonight. I'll be honest. I asked the facilitators, how's all this going to be quantified? How's it going to be taken as qualitative data and submitted on behalf of the community? And they said, well, we don't know. We didn't have a plan for that. This isn't us. This is the community talking, right? And that brings up something interesting to me, right? After generations and decades of this community speaking up and asking for things to be changed, or asking things also not to be changed, asking for things to be under the accordance of our cultural practices, like tonight, this oral tradition that's happening here. Todavía nada. They still don't do anything. They still don't care. Right? They set up public meetings that unless you got the ability to come up here in front and speak publicly, you're not going to be heard. Unless you can get on a website and write something in good English, like my grandma used to say, you're not going to be heard. But we're talking about a governmental agency, and we're talking about a corporation that has limitless resources. But todavía no se importa nada. They're still showing us they don't care, For example, if they cared, they would look at stuff like the Hassel Report. I encourage you all to look it up. The Hassel Report came back in the 60s or 70s and it looked at, well, what's going on with the foresta? What's wrong with it? How are they excluding the community? How are they being paternalistic, pretending they're everybody's daddy? And I say that chauvinistically. They pretend they're everybody's daddy because we're just kids that no sabemos nada más. We don't know anything else to do, so we need somebody to tell us how to manage the lands that were stolen from us all, right? So in that paternalistic way, they're going to say, well, this is what's best for them. We'll set up a process that doesn't even matter if our wishes are heard. Doesn't even matter if they can admit that for generations they've been breaking cultural traditions because aquí no vale nada la tradición. The only thing that matters around here is making money. I don't know, so I see some heads nodding. I mean, raise your hand if that's how you feel it is here in Taos. All that matters is making money.
That's what the other people want, not us.
That's not what we want.
That's not what we
I'm
want.
saying, yeah. So I'm dyslexic, so I speak backwards sometimes. So you'll find that. For those people here who don't understand my cultural way of talking, what I'm saying is we all live here and we feel that all that matters is making money. That's not what our values are. Our values is this, comunidad, talking, sharing, building relationships. But ¿qué pasa? With our culture, with our humbleness, because we stay quiet and we just listen, they don't understand that means no. When we don't talk, when we don't shake your hands, when we don't welcome you in for food, that means no, we don't want you. We don't want you doing that. I read how they're going to quantify that here tonight. Because if they really understood the Taos Ski Valley, the village, the foresta, they would look at all those reports from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, and they would come here tonight and say, well, here's all the evidence we know what we've done wrong over the 70 years. So first we're going to address those. Once they address those, maybe they would have some trust amongst all of us, que no importa tres cats, and they would say, now we want to hear from you what else we need to do. But being real paternalistic, they don't care about that. They're making processes that just let them check off a box, throw out a website, put up wonderful hundreds of dollars worth of colors, diagrams, and que se tanto. I mean, how much money do they spend here on the facilitators that aren't even from the local economy? Right? How much money is being invested to just railroad us and just wash us away? Pero no preocupes, tonight one of us is going to end up on their website, watch out. They'll say, look at the great community voices we had tonight without any of our permission though. Just like they paint all our houses and our chantes and sell them in the galleries and we don't even get a cut to keep our culture alive now. That's what they're doing to us. Right? And I'm not saying they're evil people, no, they're just evil ways and we have a choice of what to do. And I'm saying that because, everybody who works for the Forest Service or the ski hall or anything, to me, positions of power, it's a choice. It just is, it's like love. You decide what to do with it, pero lo que no han enseñado es que no valemos cats. But what you've shown us in your positions of power is that we don't mean anything. And if you don't know, cax means caca, dookie, caca. So I really hope everybody here tonight can slow down, think about things. Don't see it as opposition. Don't see it that the community doesn't like you or doesn't want you. En serio, as a community, we need people in the foresta. We need people in whatever those corporations are called to just open their hearts, to just slow down, quit planning your next vacation or your next promotion. We're in the damn history here. Why has it been 40 plus years of protests against the Ski Valley? Oh, yeah, maybe it's just some radical hippies. Or maybe it's because you don't know how to see and really listen to what's going on. So, with that, I wanted to say another few things here in terms of, how did we get here? There's a concept called unnatural truths written by Loma Wayman and McCarthy, a really good article. And what it talks about is when people showed up here on these lands who were from here, they had a value system that was different from a lot of us that were here, and a lot of us who came a little bit later and mixed in. And what that means is they started saying, wow, look at that pristine nature. Look at how beautiful that is. That is so valuable. Let's preserve only that. And that's how you get environmentalism, where you only care about a tree, a fish, and a river. But in that, there's implicit racism, because you don't care about a people that have been historically with that land, right? That have historically taken care, that land has taken care of them. So if you only care about how many trees on the Forest Service side, and we're going to quantify that with carbon whatever, and how many condos we can make, and how many cars can we fit, and how many electric cars can we have. I don't know anybody here owning electric cars. I know I don't, I can't afford it. I don't care if there's electric car charging stations in the Taos Ski Valley, right? But again, if we're not careful with our value systems, we're only going to value nature, and that's implicitly excluding people that have always been with the land in cultural ways, that have always been with the land in cultural ways, that have always maintained the same land that everybody here might have a beautiful, expensive oil painting. I mean, maybe not the locals, but the other non-locals, right? So with that, I really encourage you to think about that. How did that happen? How do we just value nature? How do we have a Forest Service governmental department that only cares about trees and rivers? Who the hell's protecting us? Ask your bosses that. In the history of your agency, if you guys don't care about the people, who's protecting the people that used to live on the land that agency stole, that you all have in trust, that we are forced to trust you all to take care on our behalf until you get rid of us completely, you know? Until you can talk about the good old days when I spent 5 years in Taos and learned all these great people, but now I'm living the big life because I got a promotion somewhere else, right? How many people do we cycle through this place, through the tourism luxury economy, that go away telling great adventures in Taos, but they never really questioned, did they do anything here to help preserve the place that they said filled their heart, right? So these are some big questions I don't know the answers to, but I just like throwing questions out there because I'm a little dyslexic and that's the way I think now. So the other thing I wanted to say was, you know, in the Valdez area, we have a lot of issues. And there's been a lot of documentation of that. You know, I encourage the Forest Service and the Ski Valley to look at a research that happened in the late 90s, 96, 97 through Colorado College, where they looked at traditional farms in southern Colorado and northern New Mexico, and they came with botanists and hydrologists, and they went all the way up to Rio Hondo, the Ski Valley, and they documented all the contamination and pollution. Why haven't you all presented that here tonight? That data, and what's your solution to that data? Because it's been a little while since 1996, 1997. But now we have beautiful posters on how pretty it's going to look. But I don't ever see any of us in those posters, no? They never say, here's how we're also going to preserve Valdez, Arroyo Seco, Des Montes, Arroyo Hondo, right? When is the Taos Ski Valley going to propose, here's how we're going to protect the people's way of life downstream, even though sabemos que estamos chupando la agua, ¿no? So for me, you know, I'm talking more than I should because I'm bien agringado también, no? But one of the things I'll say real quick for closing is my dad sometimes, he doesn't speak much, but he says some funny things. And it has to be about being a buen vecino, you know? Here in the Taos area, one of the things I've learned is, si uno es buen vecino, and everybody knows it. And if you're not a buen vecino, they don't even mention your name, no? And so what my dad says is, everybody brings happiness into my life, some by their presence, some by their absence. And for generations, a lot of our family's just been waiting for a lot of you just to go away. But then new ones show up with bigger ideas and bigger hotels and bigger posters and bigger job offers. But why do we have to keep taking it? Why do we have to keep taking these type of things that are even set up to capture what it is we really want? When the science, the research, the ability to capture qualitative data from people in cultural ways exists, and it has since the 60s. Y todavía no hay nada. That's a slap in the cachete here tonight, in my humble opinion, you know. And so for what little I know, I also wanted to say, I'm uncomfortable in words here tonight because there's somebody that's armed with a gun. And although they're wearing a governmental uniform, I think that's an act of violence to show up in a community event in a policing way with a pistola. That is an insult to our culture, and that's an insult to who we are coming here peacefully to share with you and voicing our opinion. So I would ask everybody here that's involved from agencies, question your legitimacy of why you think there needs to be an armed person here tonight. Because if we had that mentality, and if we showed up with guns, we would all be taken down from, we would all be taken in a very different way. And that's whether or not I'm pro-gun or not pro-gun. What I'm saying is there's one side here showing up armed. And that makes us look like we're the crazy ones? No, hombre. We're not the crazy ones. We've been here a long time. What crazy is doing the same thing and thinking you're going to get a different change. So I hope the Ski Valley, the corporation, the Forest Service, you quit doing the same thing and expecting change. So with that, les dejo. Have a good night.